thank you for joining us for our college and career panel. This is our panel on information technology and computer skills. We're super excited to have you all here tonight. This is our second event of the 2023 year, and I'm very excited for these speakers. A little background history on the Center for Excellence in Education. It was founded in 1983 by Joanne DeGennaro and Admiral Rickover, the father of the nuclear navy and civilian uses of nuclear power, with the mission to nurture high school and university scholars to careers of excellence and leadership in STEM. There's 4 programs here at the CEE: the Research Science Institute, the USA Bio-Olympiad, the Teacher Enrichment Program, and our newest edition, STEM License. I'm going to dive deep into each of these programs and just give a short overview of what they are. Our Research Science Institute is a highly competitive summer science and engineering program open to rising high school seniors. Juniors are eligible to apply, but seniors are not. RSI is the first cost-free summer science and engineering program that combines on-campus coursework and scientific theory with off-campus work in science and technology research. And then we have our USA Bio-Olympiad, otherwise known as the USABO. It's the premier biology competition for high school students in the US. It provides them motivation, curricular resources, and skills training to take them beyond their classroom experience to the level of international competitiveness. Since CEE began administrating the USABO in 2003, every member of the USA Bio-Olympiad team has been medaled at the IBO. A little bit about our Teacher Enrichment Program. TEP provides opportunities for middle and high school teachers to connect with leading experts from industry and academia, which is exactly what we're doing here today. We're also going to explore cutting-edge research and development and make those meaningful professional links with direct benefits for you. And our newest addition here, our STEM Lyceums program. It's a virtual club for high school students to engage in discussions and exploration of STEM and concepts of career pathways. If your students might be interested in this, feel free to reach out to our new program manager for this program, Erica Matthews. Feel free to reach out to her. She will share her email and the link if you have STEM students who are very eager to learn about careers. Moving on to introducing our speakers. With us today, we have Mark Kantrowitz, who is CEE's RSI Director, an expert on student financial aid, scholarships, and student loans. Mark is going to discuss some helpful tips for students who may be ready to apply to colleges or plan on going to one this fall. Then we're going to hear from Ben Wood, who is the Vice President of IT at Infineon. And after that, we're going to hear from Jonathan Ebert, a business analyst on technology and innovation team at Tata Consultancy Services. And lastly, Kelly Retcher, who is the program lead of Ignite My Future at Tata Consultancy Services. Kelly is going to share a bit about Ignite My Future, which is an educational program at Tata. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Mark, who is going to present.
I was a student at the very first Research Science Institute in 1984. I joined the Board of Trustees in 2007 and served as director of the Research Science Institute last year and will once again serve as director this year. My training is as a research scientist. I got 2 degrees from MIT and a degree from Carnegie Mellon University. And I've worked for several research organizations, including the Prentice Research Corporation, Bitstream Incorporated with a digital typography, and the MIT AI Lab, and Just Research, which was the US software laboratory of Just System Corporation of Japan. I have 8 patents, including a few on my own, a few through my employers. In addition to having a background in research, especially statistical and language models, I was one of those kids who won $1 gazillion to pay for college, both my undergraduate and graduate school. I graduated with more money than when I started. And I published a book about scholarships and fellowships for math and science students in 1993 with Joanne DeGennaro. There were no books on this topic at the time. And Prentice Hall had heard about a little collection of scholarships that I had compiled and asked us if we'd like to do a book. I started a well-known website about planning and paying for college in 1994. It was one of the first 100 commercial websites. And that website kept on growing and doubling in traffic almost every month. So by the end of the 1990s, I had to make a choice. Do I continue my day job as a research scientist, or do I quit to take my evening and weekend job publishing these websites full time. And I ultimately chose to focus full time on the financial aid websites, figuring I'd do more good for society, helping people figure out how to pay for college than by building a better web search engine. Most of my former colleagues ended up at Google. I still do research, but it is research about college access, college affordability, and college success. I've written several best-selling books about planning and paying for college. The most recent of which is Who Graduates from College, Who Doesn't? How to Appeal for More College Financial Aid, that came out right before the pandemic and was quite fortuitous. In fact, it went through the normal cycle of a spike in purchases, and then it died down, and then a month later it just started spiking again and going even higher because people were worried about what the pandemic would do, especially when people shifted to online education. And I've written about the FAFSA and private scholarships. And I also have a bestseller that has nothing to do with planning and paying for college, a cancer joke book. So let's start with some advice about choosing a college. The first is advice that you'll probably hear from a guidance counselor or a school counselor to distinguish between reach, match, and safety schools. A reach school is a school where you probably won't get in, but if you get in, you'd love to go. A match is a school where you are typical of the students who enroll at that school. And a safety school is a school where you are almost certainly going to get in, and it's a backup just in case your applications to your reach and match schools don't succeed. I also like to recommend that you apply to a financial aid safety school, which is a safety school that will not only admit you, but where you could afford to go even if you got no financial aid. And that's usually an in-state public college, but it can also be one of the 6 dozen colleges with very generous no loans financial aid policies, where loans are replaced with grants in the financial aid package. And I've quantified this in terms of your test scores, comparing them to the test scores of the freshman class, which are published by the College Navigator website on the U.S. Department of Education's website, in terms of 25th percentile, 75th percentile, and in between. A rule of thumb that I created to help people not experience as much disappointment and maybe have more satisfaction with the college application process is to encourage students to pick 3 dream schools instead of just one. Because if you apply to a dream school and you don't get in, you're going to be disappointed, and it affects your attitude at the other colleges that accept you. And according to the American Freshman Survey conducted at UCLA, Higher Education Research Institute, if you sum some of the details, for the top 3 choices, it's 94% of the freshmen say they're at one of their top 3 choices. So if you pick 3 dream schools, chances are you're going to get into one and enroll in that college. And maybe you do get into your number 1 school, but you can't afford to go because it's too expensive. So by picking 3 dream schools, you're more likely to be satisfied. You should compare colleges based on the net price, not the sticker price. The net price is the difference between the cost of attendance, the total college cost, and the gift aids, the grants and scholarships and other money that doesn't need to be repaid. Think of it as a discounted sticker price, the amount you're going to have to pay from savings, income, and loans to cover those college costs. You may have a greater financial need at a higher cost college, but the extra aid might be in the form of loans, not grants. The net price distinguishes among this, showing you what your bottom line cost of the college is going to be. And since 2011, every college has had to have a net price calculator on its website that can be used to generate a personalized estimate of the net price. And you can also play what if games. What if I had no assets? To see if maybe you shift your assets, would that have an impact on your net price? Now, there are some caveats about net price calculators. Some of them use 2-year-old data. There's a trade-off between simplicity and accuracy. The more questions there are, the more accurate it's going to be. And some add a confusing net cost figure that subtracts loans in addition to grants. There are proposals before Congress to ban that practice because it confuses families. Now, in general, if the net price between two colleges differs by more than $5,000, most families are going to choose the less expensive school. If it differs by less than $1,000, cost doesn't matter. In between, families agonize over the decision. Now, families always want to know, how do I make myself eligible for more financial aid? One is to file the free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA form, as soon as possible on or after the start date of October 1st. Students who file the FAFSA sooner tend to get more grants than students who file it later. In fact, you compare students who file it immediately to students who file it 4 months later, they get on average twice as many grants, because some grants are awarded on a first come, first served basis until the money runs out. The FAFSA is based on 2-year-old income information, also known as the prior year. You want to minimize your income during that year, like minimize capital gains or offset them with capital losses. Don't exercise stock options, so that artificially increases your income. Don't take a distribution from a retirement plan, because that's going to be treated as income. Even a tax-free return of contributions from a Roth IRA is treated as income on the FAFSA. And when your parents are divorced or separated, the parent with a lower income, including the income of any step-parents, is going to yield a lower expected family contribution, which means more financial aid. And then the FAFSA is also based on assets. So don't go out and spend your assets if you don't need to, but if you're going to need to, say, buy a new car or pay down your mortgage, it is advantageous to do this before you file the FAFSA, because assets are reported as of the date you file the FAFSA. So you can pay down debt like credit cards and auto loans and mortgages. Student assets are assessed more heavily than parent assets, with the exception of 529 college savings plans, which are reported as a parent asset on the FAFSA. But if you have money in a UGMA or UTMA account for the student, that's assessed more harshly, so spend that down first before you touch the parent's money. And there are tax credits like the American Opportunity Tax Credit, which is worth up to $2,500 based on the first $4,000 of tuition and textbook expenses, and make sure you qualify for as much of that as possible. It's also important to appeal for more financial aid if you have unusual financial circumstances. And these special circumstances can include differences. So changes from the prior year, that 2-year-old income information, to the current year. Maybe you lost your job, or you had a pay cut, or you aren't doing some extra side jobs. Your income is down. Let the College Financial Aid Office know and ask them to do a professional judgment adjustment. And they can switch your FAFSA from relying on your 2-year-old income information to an estimate of your current income information. They can do that, you can't. Other differences are things that distinguish you from the typical family, such as if you have high unreimbursed medical or dental expenses, high dependent care costs for a special needs child or elderly parent, private K-12 tuition for siblings is a special circumstance. There are literally hundreds of different unusual circumstances. So if any of these causes your income to not be reflective of your ability to pay, you can appeal. The colleges will want a short letter summarizing the special circumstances and documentation of those special circumstances, including the financial impact on the family. And you can appeal at any time, but it's best to start to do it sooner rather than later, because the colleges have contingency funds to cover these appeals, and they'll have more money in that budget if you appeal sooner. So when you're applying for admission, if you know about that special circumstance, appeal then. If a special circumstances happens later in the middle of the year, someone loses a job, well, then you can appeal at that time. And I wrote an entire book on this topic, 270 pages, so can be quite detailed. Scholarships are typically based on merit, not necessarily need, though some have a need-based component. They're usually based on academic, artistic, or athletic talent, or strange skills like creating a prom costume out of duct tape. There is a real scholarship that does that. The top prize is $10,000 for the best tux and for the best dress. Each of them gets that. And the school also gets money if the student wins. Start searching for scholarships as soon as possible so that you miss as few deadlines as possible. There are free online scholarship matching services. I mean, that's the key, that it's free. You don't get more scholarships if you pay a service for it. The free databases are usually more comprehensive. And there are also scholarships for younger children. Under age 13, you're not going to find in any of the scholarship databases because of a privacy law. But I mean, there are many such awards for children in grades kindergarten through 8th grade, such as, I mean, there's Doodle for Google, there's scholarship for Mibsters, which are kids who play with marbles, National Spelling Bee, National History Day competition, Geography Bee, and quite a few of them. And you can also continue to win scholarships even after you're already in college. Some of them are only available after you enroll because they want to make sure that you're actually going to go to college. Some of the free scholarship databases include fastweb.com and the College Board's Big Future. And it takes just 30 minutes to complete a scholarship search at either of these services. I suggest that you search at least 2 because that way you'll be certain you found all the scholarships which are eligible. There are over a dozen free scholarship databases, but FastWeb and the College Board's Big Future are the most popular. When you're using one of these services, try to answer the optional questions, not just the required questions. Students who answer the optional questions tend to match twice as many scholarships as students who don't. You can also look for books in your local public library or bookstore in the jobs and careers section, but check the copyright date first. If it's more than 1 or 2 years old, it's too old to be useful because about 10% of scholarships change in some important way each year. Now, the odds of winning a scholarship are about 1 in 8, and the average amount received is about $4,200. So this idea that you're going to win a completely free ride, that's relatively rare. Less than 1% will win a free ride through grants and scholarships that covers the full cost of attendance. Many scholarships have deadlines in the fall, but there are some that have deadlines in the spring or summer. So the sooner you start searching, the better off you'll be. Now, once you find the scholarships, you still have to apply for them, and that's not through the scholarship search site. They'll usually give you a link to the scholarship on the sponsor's website, and you'll have to submit an application. Winning a scholarship depends on luck, not just skill. So you should apply for all the scholarships for which you're eligible, because there might be several students who are just as skilled as you, and who wins each scholarship may be almost completely random. But don't apply if you're not eligible. Scholarship sponsors receive enough applications from qualified applicants that they will not consider an application of a student who is ineligible or who misses a deadline. Those essay requirements, they say 300 words, you write 300 or fewer words. You don't write 301 words because those are intended to filter the set of applicants to get them down to a more manageable number. Now, you may think, oh, I just matched 50 or 100 scholarships in one of these databases. It's going to take a lot of time to apply. Well, after your first half dozen or so scholarship applications, you'll find that the essays repeat themselves because a lot of the scholarship providers use very similar essays. So you can start reusing and adapting your essays with only a few slight tweaks, like changing the name of the scholarship program if you mention it in the essay. Now, you can't win if you don't apply. And I recommend that you create an accomplishments resume, which summarizes your hobbies, activities, like volunteer activities, jobs, clubs, sports, your honors and awards. Be specific as to dates and other important details. And then you can share this with people who will be writing letters of recommendation for you so that they can pretend that they know you better than they actually do, or remind them, but don't exaggerate in this. And this will also help you when you're completing applications for scholarships as well as college admission, because it'll remind you of some of your background that should perhaps be mentioned in the application. It is important that your essays be personalized and passionate. Write about something that is of interest to you. Make your application stand out from the crowd. Talk to about your impact on other people and the impact of other people on you. Give examples and be specific. And then once you've written an essay, print it out. Don't try to proofread it on the computer screen or rely solely on automatic spelling correction tools, because those tools will miss valid word spelling errors like ITS versus IT apostrophe S. Even talented copy editors will sometimes miss those kind of valid word spelling errors. Print it out so it looks different. When you try reading it out loud, because anytime you stumble, any kind of disfluency will be a sign of a problem. And just when you have that stumbling, you put an X at that point in the essay and you just continue reading. Afterwards, you can go back and say, oh, did I have a spelling error, a lexical error? Was there a flow problem that the thoughts didn't connect from one to the next? What was there a grammatical error? What was the reason for why you stumbled? And then you fix that and you do the process again until you can read the essay from start to finish without any disfluencies. Send your essays if they don't use computer submissions. Some still do postal mail. If you send it by postal mail, send it by certified mail, return receipt requested, or get a certificate of mailing, or get delivery confirmation so you have proof that it was received. Because if you miss it, if you send it by the deadline, but it gets lost in the mail, and you provide proof that you submitted it on time, most of the scholarship providers will allow you to submit a few days late. Now, the tip I gave about reading your essay out loud when you're proofreading also helps when writing your essay. And the reason why this works is most people think and type, they write and type at about 30 to 60 words a minute, but they think at about 200 words a minute. So the act of writing interferes with the flow of thought. If you answer the question out loud while recording yourself, that gives you more of a stream of consciousness. It makes it a more passionate essay. And then afterwards, you can transcribe your recording, and there are some tools that make this easy, and then add an outline to organize your thoughts. And you'll find that writing a 300-word essay, that's just a minute and a half of speaking, and you'll probably spend 5 minutes speaking. So mostly you're going to be editing away redundancy. Another important thing to do is to Google your name to see how you appear online. You want to make sure you have a professional online presence. A quarter of scholarship providers Google their finalists or require them to friend them on Facebook. And they're mostly looking for additional information, but you don't want any red flags to show up, like bad attitude or use of illegal drugs or consumption of alcohol. Also, use a clean email address like firstname.lastname@gmail.com and have a professional picture associated with that email address. And also review your Facebook account, removing inappropriate and immature material. I'm going to show you the duct tape scholarship, because you might not believe me if I didn't show this to you. These are some of the winners from the last few years. And you can see that these costumes are really elaborate. When I talk about the stuckatprom.com scholarship competition, most people think, oh, the duct tape, isn't that all gray? And you can see that it actually comes in multiple colors. And these students are incredibly talented. It takes them hundreds of hours to create these costumes, but they do win significant amounts of money. And the first prize I mentioned is $10,000, but there are also second and third prizes. Now, when you use online scholarship searches, or if you Google like chemistry scholarships, You're going to find legitimate scholarships, but you're also going to find some scams. And the bottom line rule of thumb is if you have to pay money to get money, it's probably a scam, because scholarships are about giving out money. They're not about getting money from you. So if there is some kind of a fee, an application fee, or they could say the taxes, or you get contacted by a scholarship you never applied to, that can be a sign that it is a scam. Don't give out credit card numbers, obviously, but also your bank account numbers, because there's something called a demand draft, which allows these con artists to empty your bank account with just the account number and the bank routing number. They do not need your signature to take money out of your account. And also beware of loans that charge an upfront application fee of some kind. Education loans never require upfront payment of the fees. Instead, they deduct them from the disbursement check. Now, there are a few ways to cut college costs, and you could go to a less expensive college, and that usually is an in-state public college or one of the 6 dozen no loans colleges. You can try to graduate in 3 years instead of 4 by planning your path from matriculation to graduation, or more realistically, 4 instead of 5. I mean, these days people are taking longer and longer to graduate because they don't pay attention to the prerequisites for the classes and when the classes are offered. And so they might not be able to take a certain class when they need to if they haven't planned in advance. A full-time enrollment is officially considered 12 credits a semester, but you need to take 15 credits a semester to graduate on time. If you do only 12 credits a semester, it'll take you 5 years. You can also get a summer job to earn money to pay for college. That's one of the things I did. You often will hear people talking about, well, you can go to a community college first and then transfer. I don't encourage this, because students who start off at a 2-year school, first of all, they're much less likely to go on to a 4-year school. But even if they do, the overall, about a fifth of students who start off at a community college ultimately graduate with a bachelor's degree within 6 years. If they're at a state that has a strong, what's called an articulation agreement, where if you graduate with an associate's degree from one of the state public and community colleges, you are automatically enrolled into one of the 4-year colleges, it's still less than a third. So it is a detour that may cause you to miss your destination. Certainly you'll save money, but it's a very big risk. I mean, that's 20% compared with 2/3 for the students who start off at a 4-year institution. Also, try to avoid transferring or changing majors, and try to crystallize your decision of an academic major very early, because it takes you an additional 1 or 2 terms to graduate, and that means more costs. Now let's talk about how to cut your borrowing costs. Not that much, in just a few more slides. First of all, focus on the free money first, and because loans have to be repaid, grants usually don't. Part-time student jobs can help, like work study, but most students use this for walking around money and not to pay the college costs. You can earn up to, next year will be $7,600 before it affects your financial aid eligibility, but don't work full-time, because a student who works a full-time job is half as likely to graduate within 6 years as compared to a student who works 12 hours or less a week. And live like a student while you're in school, so you don't have to live like a student after you graduate. If you buy a $10 pizza every week and you use student money to pay for it, first of all, it adds up just nominally to $2,000 over 4 years. But if you use student loan money to pay for it, every dollar you borrow will cost about $2 by the time you repay the debt. So that becomes $4,000 of pizza. That's an awful lot of pizza. It may not be pizza. It may be specialty drinks like coffee or from a vending machine, but it really does add up. So ask yourself before you spend student loan money on anything, if you'd still buy it at twice the price. Now, this is a set of tips from my recent book, How to Graduate from College. Students who have a higher high school GPA are much more likely to graduate from college and with less debt. Math matters. The higher level math that you take in high school, the more likely you are to graduate from college. So a student who just has Algebra 1 is much less likely to graduate than a student who has Algebra 2 or geometry or pre-calculus or even calculus. So learn more math, you're more likely to graduate. Students who major in STEM are more likely to graduate. For whatever reason, they are more likely to graduate than a student who majors in the humanities. I already mentioned that you should try to avoid working a full-time job. Also, your enrollment status matters. If you enroll half-time, you're half as likely to graduate as compared to a student who enrolls full-time. And I am very negative on gap years. First of all, only 90% of students who take a gap year return to college after that gap year. Slightly better if it's a structured gap year, but it's still not everybody who takes a gap year enrolls in college. And of those who do enroll in college, only half of them are going to graduate with a bachelor's degree within 6 years. They're going to get an associate's degree or certificate, it's probably okay, but if they're pursuing a bachelor's degree, it has a really negative impact on college degree attainment. Thank you. I'll turn it back to Adiola.
I'm going to turn it over to Ben Wood. We're going to hear more about his IT journey and how STEM plays a role into that.
So thanks, everybody. Warm welcome from my side. Went to a 4-year school and got a business administration degree with a concentration in marketing. Then while I was working, I went on and achieved a MBA in global management. I'll start kind of at the bottom up. So when I started in 1999 in East Fishkill, New York, Infineon, which is a semiconductor company, we were in a joint venture with IBM. I started at real entry level there. Then had the opportunity to move to Raleigh, North Carolina, where I was responsible for our service desk and desktop support teams in the Americas region. Then I moved over to Munich, Germany. I spent 3 years working on projects, primarily mergers and acquisitions, as well as divestiture projects. Then I moved to Singapore. I was there for 3 years, where I was responsible for our data center infrastructure in Asia Pacific. Then I moved back to Munich. I took the role of Director of IT Strategy globally for Infineon, working for our CIO at the time. And then in 2015, the company I worked for acquired International Rectifier for the cost of about $3 billion US dollars. And that brought me back to the El Segundo region, where I'm responsible for IT in all of the Americas region. So always with one company, a lot of different opportunities to travel and move and see the world, and different roles within IT along the journey. And when I was invited to join this session, what excited me was, I'm understanding that this is geared towards teachers and students. I come from a family with a teaching background. My mother taught US history at my high school for 30 years. And I have 2 brothers who've been in the education system for between 20 and 30 years respectively. So very excited about that. And, to build off of what Mark showed a few minutes ago, I have a daughter who graduated college in December. So she graduated in 3.5 years with her bachelor's. And I have a son who's graduating high school this year and looking into colleges now, down to the last steps. So thanks for having me. The other thing that I think is really interesting, and you'll learn more about my company here in a minute, it's a large organization, but I think what's interesting, and I'm seeing this play out in other areas of the semiconductor industry, is we've set a goal for ourselves that all new hires, 25% of all new hires, should be more or less fresh out of college graduates. So it gives me a good chance to jump into the company that I work for. So Infineon is a semiconductor company. We've got 56,000 employees worldwide, and we're the global leader in semiconductor, automotive, power management, and top 4 for microcontrollers, which includes energy efficient technologies. We focus on kind of the 2 big high growth trends. So decarbonization, so CO2 saving, energy efficiency, sustainability, and digitalization. As I mentioned before, 56,000 employees. You can see our footprint here is about 5,500 in the Americas region, about 28,000 in Asia Pacific, and another 22,000 plus in Europe and the Middle East. We have about 80 locations worldwide that we're supporting. And then from a revenue, you can see how we've gone up over the last 5 years from a 7.5 billion euro revenue company up to 14.2 billion. Our business segments, so we're heavy in automotive. Just to give you a little flavor here, how I explain it, every Tesla that sells, we've got about $500 to $600 in power components in the Tesla. For an industrial power control IPC, here we're heavily involved with companies such as Dyson. So this could be things like hair dryers, it could be vacuum cleaners. In the power sensors area, we provide power units for devices and data centers for Amazon, Google, a few others. Also, we have the microphones that are in every iPhone comes from Infineon. And on the connected secure systems, what we also do is every chip in the US passport security chip is our chip. So just to give you a little bit of flavor of what we do. And what we do is we design the products, we have about 80% in-house manufacturing of the products, and then of course we ship and sell our products throughout the globe. You can just see, again, as I mentioned, automotive, which is the biggest part of our portfolio. You can see some of the customers there, some well-known names like Hyundai, Mitsubishi, etc. You can see some of the other big names here. These are the customers that we service in the different areas. My customers are the 56,000 employees at Infineon, as well as any business partner who's trying to do a business-to-business transaction with our business guys, and then supporting our sales guys as they also sell product. So how we're broken down from the IT side, you can see here based on the region, the Americas makes up about 10%, a little more of our IT footprint. Europe makes up about half. It's a company that's headquartered out of Munich, and then Asia Pacific makes up about 40% of our IT employee footprint. And I think what's kind of interesting when you think of the numbers, we have about 61,000 laptops and desktops that we support, nearly 21,000 mobile devices. On the service projects, we're supporting over 1,100 applications worldwide, and we're running at any given time 160 different projects. And when we talk about projects, what are some of these projects that we do? One example of a project is we've acquired a few companies over the years, so International Rectifier, Cypress, and some others, and we started about 5 years ago with 21 different ERP systems. And so we have a big, huge corporate initiative to consolidate into one SAP platform to be used globally for all of our locations and all of our services. We're currently working on revamping our website and improving the customer experience. You may have seen and heard with the various CHIPS Act related activities that there's a lot of invest in the semiconductor industry right now. So we've got a lot of site expansion that's ongoing. We've got new sites going up all the time. We continuously look at our product portfolio and things that are not where we want them to be in terms of profitability. We will divest and sell to somebody else where it could make a big difference for them, but it's not a core business for us. We divest, and then we also scan the market and see who are players that are in our playing on our court, so to speak, or on our field, and then we look for acquisitions there. So I mentioned the International Rectifier acquisition in 2015. That was a 3 billion acquisition, and then in 2020 we did a 10 billion acquisition of legacy Cypress. So with those mergers and acquisitions, what you try to do in those cases is take two organizations, two tool sets, two processes, two teams, and bring them together into one that runs optimally. Divestitures, it's taking part and sending it out. And then the other thing we need to do, because we do so much production, is maintain stable operations, operational excellence. So stability, ensure that there's redundancy in case there's a failover in one of our sites or one of our data centers, that our production isn't impacted at all, that it can continue to run. with all of the security threats that are out there, that's something that's always top of mind, as well as further optimization, innovation, as well as compliance. It's a very inclusive organization. We have 80 nations that are covered in our 1,300 employees. So it's a very diverse workforce. So as it relates to STEM, how I see this really is, when people ask me about the future of IT, I think nearly no one would argue that the future of IT is bright. And that, as we tie this to STEM, for sure, STEM skills are going to be required in the future. When we see hyperautomation, security, good user interfaces, analytics, digitalization continue to drive IT, how we look at it is, 3 areas that I think are real important are the engineering design thinking. I think this is absolutely required for ensuring that, at least in our organization, what we try to do is we try to implement a solution that will be valid for all of our 80 locations. And when we do this, then we can follow same processes, same procedures all over the globe. We can implement follow the sun support so that, Asia can support US, US can support Europe, Europe can support Asia as the sun, as the earth, rotates and spins every day. We've got people all over the globe who can help support our end users. So I think that engineering design thinking is going to be key. Problem solving. Just to share with you, in an organization like ours, we have about 30,000 every month globally. Somebody reports via our service desk, something's not working. That could be they have a share that ran out of network space. They could have an account that doesn't work. And there's about another 25,000 every month I'd like to have. Can you create an iShare? Can you extend this drive, from 10 gig to 20 gig? Can you support this application? Can you support this service? So from a volume point of view, so we're actively always looking at the problems that come up, identifying root cause, seeing how we can get in front of those topics and then support our users. And then I think the last thing, which is extremely key, is collaboration. As more people, and I think this is what's very interesting compared to when I started in this industry in 1999, with the volume of people that are using mobile devices and iPads and things of that nature, I would say that's probably higher than it's ever been in the history of our existence. More and more people have some form of technical capabilities, which, I would say it lifts the boats for all of us. It makes all of us a little better. But on the other hand, to support it, then you get a lot of other opinions from people that maybe aren't in our team that we have to collaborate with. And so we can't just say we know better. We need to really sit, listen, and collaborate with our business. But also, to run a global organization, you have to be good at communication and collaboration to support, 1,200 applications across the globe in a seamless way that people don't see. And so the last point I think I'm going to make here is more just, what can you do, whether you're a person that's looking to get into the IT field, or supporting STEM, supporting or teaching students. For me, it's really about fostering inclusion. What I see here is that all skill sets have a seat at the table within IT. It's not just, the really smart introverted programmer who likes to go code that's going to be successful. You're going to also have extroverts who work on projects that maybe aren't as technically gifted as some of the other coders, as an example, but have a knack for bringing people together. And when you run a project, oftentimes you don't get project resources that spend 100% of their time on the project. They focus maybe 90% on their operational task, their day-to-day job, and they have a 10% activity towards a project. And when you have this, you have to be able to manage this and balance that across the globe. So I think that my message would be, as we're talking about STEM and we're thinking about IT in particular, really encourage anybody, I think, can be involved. Anybody can be successful. What's great, and we're seeing this more and more, as you saw the 80 people that are 80 nations that are represented by our organization. That diversity is great. And, also gender diversity. Probably we went from a 90% male, 10% female share when I started in 1999, and we're close to a 35% female share now. So I think that's also great, all that diversity and inclusion. And I think what's helpful is early levels, early education. If you can encourage anybody and everybody to get involved with STEM and see that maybe there's something in it for them, then I think that's as good as we can do.
Thank you so much for sharing that. We're going to hand it over to Jonathan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Ebert. I'm a business analyst working with Tata Consulting Services, or TCS for short. And my educational background includes computing and information sciences, bachelor's degree, and a minor in economics from the University of North Florida. I understand a few Floridians might be in the call today, so I have experienced the region, and I've got about 6 years of professional experience in the technology industry so far. In the next few minutes, I'll speak to the company I work for and give some insights into the kind of services and industries we provide to, much like Ben did previously, and I'll share about what I do for work and attempt to tie all that into some STEM education related insights that you might find useful in your classrooms. If you do want to reach out to me, you can always get in touch with me via my work email, jonathan.ebert@tcs.com. So with that, I'll move into kind of how I got into STEM and my, not so much upbringing, but my intro into where I'm at now. So with high school, around that time, I was exploring engineering and computing electives. I had taken an AP computer science course and failed that AP test. And I'm not exactly the greatest all-star test taker, but I did continue to enjoy computing, and I also tinkered with devices, cars, and I just generally enjoyed knowing how things worked. I had thought I was going to be like an engineer working on automotives or robots or something, but computing, as I found out as I went into college, was kind of my bread and butter. And I'm kind of glancing over some things there. But so once I got into college, I pursued my degree at UNF with computing and info sciences. And in my junior year, I did an internship at Citizens Property Insurance, a Floridian-based company. And that's sort of where I started seeing about how software teams function in the real world. And in my senior year, I actually got to, my degree program included a senior project where we did get to implement a technology project for a nonprofit in the Jacksonville area. And that was an incredible learning experience because I actually got to work with a client and perform a service for them and have an in-industry mentor coach my team. So that was really a growth point for me, even before I started my professional career. But getting onto the career, I've been with TCS since I left college, and I'm really grateful that the company picked me up. I actually started as a junior software engineer, and I quickly transitioned into a business analyst role. And I was working with an auditing firm down in Tampa for 3 years. I did transition into that because at the time it was a little overwhelming with all the technologies and such to actually learn and be a productive part of the team. So I went into something that I was good at. I was organized and I could work with teams and talk to people. So being an analyst gave me that opportunity to solidify my experience in software. I'll get to more about what I do in a minute, but after working with that client in Tampa, I transitioned to the corporate social responsibility team, which I'll tell you a bit about too. And that's shortened down to CSR, if I mention it that way. But I'm very excited that I got to work with that team now in TCS. And just a bit about where I'm going from here. I am moving and I guess aspiring to be in a more technical role as I continue my career. Like web development is something I'm targeting, but continue to learn different technologies in the industry and contribute to communities and nonprofits is something I enjoy. So, and actually I've contributed to a couple nonprofits with their websites and Salesforce setups in the past, just on my own on the side. So that is something I do. So touching on my company, Tata Consulting Services is a global IT services consulting and business solutions company. We operate in 55 countries and have about 613,000 employees globally. if you can think of it, we're usually in that industry. So, I mean, maybe not global defense, but if we're talking about travel, hospitality, energy, retail, banking, financial services, we're usually involved in some shape or form. So, in addition to some of those services or industries we touch on, our services kind of look like the cloud industry, cybersecurity, IoT, which is Internet of Things, and data analytics, just to name a few. So that's a bit of a company. I'll be brief there, but going into a bit more about what I do on a day-to-day basis, I engage with a lot of our STEM education and CSR functions, and I'm responsible for digital rollouts or programs like Ignite My Future, which my colleague Kelly is on the phone for. I'm also supporting programs like GoIT, which I can tell you about a bit about too. And I typically have about 5 to 6 different initiatives or projects that I oversee at one time. My main role as a business analyst is to bridge the gap between our program leaders, or what I call a product owner, and technology teams. So we take requirements or digital needs from conception to design, and then to development, and then to release, skipping some of the intermediate steps there. But it's my job to keep communications open, ensure that expectations are set between all stakeholders, and ensuring everything goes as planned. So in addition to bridging the gap, I also solve problems on a daily basis. That might include issue triaging and solution brainstorming with my different stakeholders. I also organize and ensure applications are tested and built as planned, and I ensure the team is sticking to that plan. One special project I get to work on every day is something called Community Innovation, and that's a CSR initiative where TCS is engaging global volunteers to produce pro bono services specifically for nonprofits. And we engage volunteers from all over the globe to consult and build solutions using their professional skill sets. This program does target only nonprofits, and they don't have to, and that's usually nonprofits that don't have money or the means to contribute to the digital economy in the way that they want to. So that's something I'm fortunate to be able to manage and give positive impact to nonprofits and communities they touch. So that's one of the ways that TCS does give back to communities that they are engaged with in 55 plus communities or countries that are in. And one other thing about my role is I look at data privacy. So it's something that's pretty crucial in today's world, ensuring that data privacy needs are met for projects. I am responsible that, and I have a duty as a technology employee to ensure that we're being mindful about how we use data, and we practice things called data minimization, which ensures that we're only collecting the data that we need. We have specific technology or privacy teams within TCS that ensure that we do follow these things, but I have to think about these way ahead of time and ensure that things like GDPR guidance in the UK and EU are followed. Have you ever seen a cookie consent tool on a site that you visited? There's usually a reason for it. So, and we usually follow the strictest privacy as we get. And just a quick visual about kind of how I fit into the team. I'm kind of a bit of a funnel for ensuring that things get looked at and taken into account. So requirements are a big portion of what we need to take in as an analyst, whether it's in computing or any other aspect that I could get engaged with this kind of role. I also have to think about things from a data privacy side, which I just mentioned, and a testing side. So ensuring that things are tested and built to specification is usually a big piece as we're continuing to build on. But I also have to continue learning and understanding the technologies that we use to ensure that I understand how things are supposed to work and what I'm looking at. And something I'll touch on in a little bit about some of the skills that makes for a successful person entering the STEM field is just design thinking principles, understanding user empathy, and building something that's useful to the world is a big priority for providing something that adds value to the stakeholders I work with. So that's a bit about being a business analyst. I will tell you a bit more about what key factors I find in successful STEM education folks. Starting off, the computational thinking aspect of how we approach problems is an incredibly valuable skill. Everyone is a computational thinker, whether they know it or not. Kelly is obviously going to be able to tell you more about this because Ignite My Future is all about computational thinking. So I will stop it at that. But another couple items here is just being detail oriented. Organizing yourself and making complex efforts easier for all people involved is usually my my go-to, and especially when you're working with global teams. If I have a software team based out of India, I have to ensure that things are dialed, or else things get dropped or misunderstood. So, and that kind of leads into asking questions and communicating often. So those all tie together, and that's kind of in addition to the typical communication and listening skills that you'll hear from everyone. But the other thing I touched on in my visual was continual learning. That's a crucial piece of being a part of today's technology industry, or any other STEM industry in that matter. So whether you're in engineering or computing, it's something you always have to keep in touch with. And then design thinking and understanding empathy, I did talk about that, but that is another aspect. We do have a program called GoIT within the TCS space of CSR and STEM education that actually brings that that tool, and it essentially is a program that our GoIT team in TCS can bring, whether it's virtual or in person, to classrooms so that they can go through and understand what design thinking is and such. So I'll hit a bit more on that at the end. And then something I picked up early on in my professional career was fail fast, learn faster. It's an agile concept. It stems from a very popular software development methodology. It's not just software, but it's up there for me with posters like, you know, work smarter, not harder. But in any case, last item here is just engage with the people you aspire to be like. So if you have kids in your classrooms that, you know, have goals already and they're ready to look for something that they want to do, you know, tell them to find people that do that. Again, if that's someone like me, reach out to me. But helping them find a mentor is always helpful. So a bit of takeaways for just STEM education and what I've had to say here is the computing industry specifically, it's an incredibly diverse and complex field to approach. It is incredibly daunting even to find a field that you might find interesting to work in. Technology and the devices we use every day evolve at a rate that's really hard to fathom, but I love telling people about the concept of abstraction. It's something I learned in college, but it's really interesting, I think. So, you know, as a general user of, say, like a smartphone, we can use something that, you know, we're blissfully unaware of how it works in all its complexities. But, you know, if you find a student that has an interest in something like a cell phone or any technology, challenge them to research it and understand how it works. You know, break it down piece by piece and dissolve those layers of abstraction away from what we see as a phone. So that's kind of how I approach things that I like to enjoy. But, you know, when we start talking about the new technologies we see, like ChatGPT or, you know, smart devices and everything from our homes to our cars and, you know, everything in between, you know, learn how it works if you're interested in it. IoT is all about smart devices and such, and might even be using things from Ben's company to run. So, but my recommendations for any students is, research it. I mentioned that already, but find something interesting and go for it. Get them interested and pursue it, and don't feel afraid to try things out. Much like the endeavor I'm trying to take on now, where I want to move to a more technical role. I don't have to stick with one job or one technology. It's going to evolve in a couple years anyway. So continue to learn and try something new. And finally, getting on with our STEM education offerings at GoIT at TCS. We have GoIT in a future. GoIT is targeting the K through 12 range, and it is a flexible and curated lesson plan, and includes activities for in-person or virtual events. Some of the pathways include app design, AI, which is always interesting, and IoT, which is Internet of Things, but those actually bring students through the process of learning how to be a design thinker, for example, or even computational thinking. But Ignite My Future is also something that Kelly will talk about, but it's an offering to bring computational thinking into your classrooms.
I'm going to pass it off to Kelly. She's going to speak really fast about Ignite My Future educational program.
Good evening, everyone. Excited to be here with you tonight. My name is Kelly Recker. I'm the program lead for Ignite My Future in school, and I work with Jonathan all the time, and I help run computational thinking program Ignite My Future. Here's my contact info. If you feel free to email, reach out on Twitter. Would love to connect with you. Our computational thinking program, and Jonathan touched on it a little bit, but it's run through our CSR, TCS's CSR, corporate social responsibility portion of the company. And it's a program that we want to be able to empower educators, so teachers like yourselves, all around the world, through a unique approach that's going to integrate computational thinking into all core subjects. So it's not just a computer science class, it's not just a science class or a math class, it's everything. We even have lesson plans that work with students who are into art and physical education. So we love to make sure, what we wanted to do is make sure that teachers can take these skills that we know are so important, because teachers are being asked to do so many things. I was a former teacher. I taught for 18 years in middle school science, and I know that we're asked to teach so many things, and some things we didn't get trained on. And computational thinking is one of those skills that students are going to use no matter what role they have. And so when we launched this program in 2017, we wanted to empower our teachers to integrate these skills into their classes. So far in North America, we've engaged over 30,800 educators and 1.8 million students, which we are really proud of. And at TCS, we know firsthand, because we are an IT company, that's important to prepare people for the future of work. And that's what teachers like you all are doing every single day. And the scary thing is, some of these roles haven't been created yet. I know when I went to school, half of the jobs that are at my company right now at TCS, they didn't exist. The world is changing, and so we need to give our students the tools that they need to be successful no matter what role they have. So computational thinking, we define it as a problem solving, that it's a way for students to take any problem they're going to be faced with and use these 7 strategies to tackle that problem. Maybe it's figuring out how to change a tire. You're going to use some of those skills, or figuring out how to pass out or hand out a vaccine if there's maybe, I don't know, a pandemic. So we look at these 7 key strategies, and these are all embedded into our resources that we have for our teachers. Ignite My Future offers multiple opportunities to support teachers. One way we do that is through our professional development. So we offer free professional development, and that's the best part about our programs, is they're free, and they will always be free. And that's just part of who TCS is, giving back to the communities where we live and work. We do an intro to computational thinking, take some deep dives into resources, and meet teachers where they're at. And these can be curated with districts and groups of teachers as needed. We also offer 65 interdisciplinary resources. So we have a resource library. Teachers can help their students engage in real-world problem solving using computational thinking. So our scenario-based lessons They're for students grades K to 12. I would say our sweet spot would be like middle school, high school. And then it also helps them, it helps the teachers connect just different subject areas, as well as incorporating that computational thinking vocabulary and that those habits of problem solving. And teachers can figure out like, how do these best fit into what I'm already doing? Because that's the thing. We know that you're being asked to do so many things and there's already so much curriculum that needs to be taught. How can you fit these into the lessons that you're teaching and the curriculum that you're teaching? And they're all standards based as well. We also have a Learning Leaders Network, which is just a group of global group of teachers that are like-minded. They want to learn more. They want to share. We host monthly meetings. We send out newsletters. We share things about special projects and what's going on in the world of computer science and computational thinking as well. And last but not least, access to industry experts. So one thing that we are not lacking at TCS is employees. We have a lot, like Jonathan said, over 600,000 of them. And so one of my favorite things, well, everything is my favorite thing about Ignite My Future, but one of my very favorites though is this, our computational thinking career panels. So our career panels, these started with actually when COVID hit, and teachers said, we would love to have some speakers come. Can you come in virtually? Because we can't do the in-person right now. And so it was great because we can have, TCSers come from all over, different parts of the world and, hop into different classrooms and share the passion of, what they do and link to those careers and the students' hobbies and interests. And it's wonderful for the teachers as well as the students. It answers that question, when am I ever going to need this? And TCS helps, if something you're interested in, you can reach out to us and say, hey, like I'd love to have speakers come and talk about math and how they use math in their careers. And then we always touch on computational thinking as well. Or we had a teacher who had a 3D printer and they wanted to know how TCS used 3D printers in the company or, with software and things like that. So we were able to find people to talk about any of those things. Volunteers or industry experts, then they can be from STEM and non-STEM backgrounds. We just had a class that asked if kids wanted to learn about how to create their own brand. And so we had one of our marketing communications team members come on and talk about that and social media and touch a little bit on, I think, what Mark was saying about, watch what you're posting online, things like that. That'll, help them later on, especially as they're trying to apply for colleges. These can be tailored to whatever the teacher needs, and we would love to work with you on that, or professional development, or if you have any questions. And so I'm going to put that QR code up. If you would like to reach out, that is it's our email, TCS, ignitemyfuture.global@tcs.com. And that's also my email if you would like to reach out to me.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Because we are running short on time today, I think I am going to make our Q&A session a little more virtual. And any questions you guys have for me, feel free to email me and I will direct them right onto our panelists and have those answers for you. Feel free to also join TEP's LinkedIn group chat. This is a way for you guys to stay connected with each other, and also professionals share resources with each other, and also stay up to date on every single event that TEP has going on. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and feel free to scan this QR code so that you can join our next webinar, which is coming up on February 28th. It is our aerospace webinar, and we're super excited to host it. Teacher Enrichment Program's major sponsors include Akamai Foundation, Cloudmore Foundation, Equitrans, Lockheed Martin, A Family Foundation, TC Energy, and Vulcan Materials.